What's up everybody, Subaru fan here for another car review. This is of course the 2019 Subaru WRX STI S209. Huge thanks to Subaru for providing me with this very rare and very special STI to review for you guys today. So about the S209, well, these are extremely rare. Only 209 of these will be made. It's exclusively for the United States, and it is a very special STI. It's the first time we've gotten the S-Series vehicles here in the States, and for anyone that's been a long-time WRX fan, you will know that these S20 whatevers have been very special and something we've never had in the past. So to have this here in the States alone is a very big deal. And then the improvements here on the STI. There's a full laundry list here for the S209 that are very impressive. But first, right up front, you can see that it's a wider body. It's actually 1.7 inches wider for the vehicle dimensions. Now the track is only 0.6 inches wider, but still should certainly help with handling. But you also just have the more aggressive front end there with the STI front lip. You also have the little canards there hanging off of the front bumpers, and those look great. Of course, it's just a very familiar STI body style we all know and love from 2015. But these fenders are really, I think, my favorite part, because you have all these functional vents. By the way, every vent you see on here is functional, unlike some other sports cars you see these days. So this fender vent is awesome. You also have this nice little S209 garnish, another little vent there behind the front wheel. Then you have these beautiful 19-inch forged STI BBS wheels, and they look fantastic with those big Brembos hiding behind them. And then coming down to the sides, you have side skirts that even extend out to accommodate that wide body. And then going out towards the back there, you see more functional vents. You see that massive carbon fiber rear wing there, which is all about downforce. This whole vehicle is about track performance, and it's actually serious about it. This isn't just something that's supposed to look like it's fast but not actually be very impressive. This thing will actually be a monster on track, and they've made the appropriate modifications to do that. But it looks great. You also have some larger exhaust tips there and an actual sportier muffler setup and stuff, although it's not super loud, which you'll hear once we hit the road. Another nice carbon fiber touch that you have is a carbon fiber roof, which should help lower that center of gravity and again help this vehicle to handle even better. Overall, still just a very good looking vehicle, and especially with that wider body, this thing really stands out. Whereas for the interior on the S209 version of the STI, well, it is a very special interior as well. They did a nice job dressing it up a little bit so that it does feel a good bit different than a standard STI. First thing that you notice here are these Recaro seats, which do have the nice S209 embroidering here in the headrest, and have the white accents here that look very cool. Now, the seats themselves are pretty similar to the standard Recaros. It's been a few years since I've sat in those, but pretty sure they're the same. And the torso support's good, but the thigh support still could use some improvement. You see stuff like the new Civic Type R seats and stuff, which have way more thigh support than these do, and these seats just feel a little ordinary in that regard. Now, they are pretty stiff seats as well, so honestly, from a daily driving standpoint, I don't know if I'd want to daily drive these unless you really like firm seats. Otherwise, you know, as a fun weekend vehicle or a track thing, they're great, but you know, just a little firm here. They are heated though, and they do also have power adjustments. So two little surprising things here for a track vehicle that they're trying to keep the weight down. You still have a few creature comforts, which is interesting. But yeah, I mean, overall, they're still fine seats. They're not too bad, and I'll be driving this vehicle for a week, so I'll get a chance to see just, you know, how they feel over that amount of time. But not in love with them currently. Next is the steering wheel here though, which is a really great steering wheel. It's Alcantara wrapped here in the S209, and has a great 9-3 grip, nice little 10-2 notches, and a flat bottom to it. And I also especially love the intercooler sprayer. They brought that back here as a little nod to the 04 to 06 STIs, and I think that's just so cool. So yeah, if you want to cool off your intercooler there, you just pull back that and it'll spray some water and cool it off. But it really doesn't do anything unless you're at a track day or you have a lot of heat soak and stuff. But just a cool little touch, and you know, another little thing to make this feel a little more special. Gauges here are also pretty similar to other STIs. I do like the little accents you have there for the analog dials, and I think they're still very attractive gauges. You also have that little color display in the middle there that's you know, got a few things. It will show you your center diff and your drive mode, and then just basically your digital speed readout or drive time, and that's the only things you have there. But you do have this additional driver information display up on the top of the dashboard coming over to the middle here. And that's where you'll find a boost gauge, and you can also see where your torque split's going, front to back. You can also, you know, see your throttle inputs, all that type of stuff, as well as fuel economy. And that's also where it'll display your climate controls whenever you change that as well. So great little bit of information there, and I like that it's nice and high up there on the dash. Coming down there, you do have this little bit small screen, but it's a touch screen and works well. It's a 7-inch, it's Subaru Starlink system, and you know, it has Apple CarPlay and Android Auto now, which is great that it has that. You still do have a few little like capacitive touch buttons on it, as well as you do have, thankfully, volume and tune knobs, although they feel a little loose and cheap feeling, but great to at least have both of those from a functionality standpoint. And you know, it's pretty simple and easy to navigate. You know, radio stations and stuff, changing all that is very easy to do. Otherwise, storage space here in the S209 is like any other STI, where you have a nice pocket in the door with a bottle holder. You have this nice little pocket in the front of the shifter here, and nicely rubberized. You also see a power outlet there. You have two standard size cup holders with this little cover that goes over top of them. And this whole center area, though, with this cup holder arrangement and this little center armrest, honestly, is very cheap, hard, old-fashioned plastic. And I think this is actually the same center console, at least parts of it, from my 2006 Subaru Legacy GT Spec B. I think it had basically the same thing. So anyway, but you do have your heated seat controls here in this area, and then this center armrest, which does have some padding on it, has some Alcantara, but it is kind of low, so not the best positioning for that. But anyway, you open it up, and you'll see a traditional power outlet in there, as well as two more USB jacks, an auxiliary jack, and so great to have those. Although it would be nice to have some hookups out here in the open, but good to have those nonetheless. You do have a pretty small little storage area here, though. It's not great, but thankfully you do have other places, you know, like I said, in front of the shifter and stuff. A few other things that could be a little bit better. So you have this nice stitching and padding here right by the transmission tunnel, but you'll see it only goes about an inch back, and then you have hard plastic. So whenever you're actually resting your knee in this area, it still is pretty hard, not very comfortable there. But you do have some other nice touches, like, you know, you have a little bit of padding up here by this driver display. You do have the cherry blossom red S209 trim here on the interior, which is a great touch. Backseat space, though, here in the STI is fantastic, same as all Imprezas and WRXs of this generation. And so anyway, I'm 5'9", me sitting behind myself. I have about 3 to 4 inches of legroom to spare, plenty of headroom thanks to the nice tall roof here in these, and they're pretty comfortable seats. Thankfully, they are a little bit softer than these seats up front here. And then otherwise, you have pockets in the doors with a bottle holder, and you also have this flip down cup holder arrangement here, which again I think is identical to my Legacy from 10, 15 years ago. But nice to have that nonetheless, even though it is a little loose and wobbles a little bit. So overall, still just a nice, roomy and spacious back seat. Trunk space in the STI is also very good. You will see more cherry blossom red accents there because you have that rear strut bar back there, which is a cool addition. Otherwise, though, your average size trunk for a vehicle of this type, and obviously the same as any other WRX or STI. Beneath the floor, you just have a little like a mobility kit type thing, because obviously there's not going to be any room for a spare, considering these tires are so much wider than standard WRX or STI tires. But anyway, still a good amount of space there in the trunk. But let's start up and go for a drive. So the newer Subarus here, I think 2019 or 2018, they had this new key, and I love it. It's a little thick, but honestly, it just feels so nice with this like satin metal trim on the sides, and then you have just, nice couple of buttons. Just has a nice weight to it. I love this key. So of course, it's keyless access, keyless entry, and push button start. So you just leave the key in your pocket, put the clutch in, hit the engine start button, and it starts right up. All right, so setting off here in the S209. So many things to take in right off the bat. First off, though, I think is the clutch and the throttle response. So you have immediate throttle response. Like, it is so quick to ramp up. I mean, you just lean on the gas a tiny bit and it's immediately like flinging you up to 3,000 RPMs. So clutch engagement, if you first are starting off on one of these, is going to be a little tricky. But once you get used to it, it's okay. It's just you have to relearn your muscle memory, because any other clutch and throttle, it's going to be a lot more relaxed. And so with this, you You just have to immediately lift off the clutch basically, because those RPMs are going to jump so fast. Even if you feel like you're dumping the clutch, you probably aren't. So that takes a little getting used to. Other things here, steering is actually really heavy. I think part of that's because of the wider track and the wider wheels and stuff. But I mean, it's so heavy, in fact, that at times it almost feels like you don't have power steering. It's not quite that bad, but it's not far off. But it gives you tons of steering feel as a result, and feels great. Also, you have insane visibility in all these WRXs and STIs. Massive windshield, huge side windows, great view out of the back. Even that rear spoiler doesn't really impede your vision a whole lot, so no issues there. And so great job as far as just daily drivability here. It's very good. But I'm going to turn onto this back road here and see how it does. Here we go. Waiting for the turbo. Ooh, then it takes off and it flies. Oh man, this thing, it rips. Oh, that's fun. So the S209 here runs the same EJ25 displacement 2.5 liter turbo flat 4 engine as before, but it has been completely gone through. So they did all kinds of changes to it, where they reinforced the internals of it. It also has a bigger HKS turbo. We're also running over 2.5 more PSI of boost. It's now 18.9 PSI total. And they did all the stuff you can do to pump up an engine basically. So they also added like a high flow air intake system. It also has a bigger fuel pump, bigger injectors, all those types of things they went through. Obviously a new tune and everything. And you also have higher flow mufflers as well. So all that combines to give you a full grand total power output of 341 horsepower, 330 pound-feet of torque. And Subaru claims a 0 to 60 time of less than 5 seconds. That's about the same as a standard STI, so nothing remarkable there. But it's pretty punchy. They did say they improved mid-range torque as well, and so now they say that you get peak torque at 3,600 RPM. So 3,600 RPM is still really high, especially for a turbocharged vehicle. But that's they say it improves corner exit speeds and stuff like that. Another thing you might notice is partially, I think there's less sound deadening in the S209, or at least it seems that way to me. But that combined with these stickier tires, you hear every little pebble and every little road imperfection and just gravel and everything. You hear all that stuff way more. I'm also hearing gear whine. I'm hearing like the power steering pump. Like, you hear all kinds of things in this vehicle. It's a very visceral and raw experience, which is very, very interesting. So you have so much to take in, and it's really sensory overload, aside from the fact you don't have much sound, unfortunately, out of those higher flow mufflers. It might be a little more sound than before, but not a ton. But anyway, we're cutting up some corners here and see how this thing handles. It is so flat. It is insanely flat, and it feels so light and darty. It is just crazy. I mean, it's so easy to go around these corners. Like, I would have to go at such high illegal speeds to even challenge this car on this road. I mean, it is just so much grip from these 265 wide tires. It's flinging all my camera gear there in the back. So they're these Dunlop SP Sport Max tires, similar to the tires you see on Nissan GTRs and stuff like that. Very grippy tires, also very expensive. They're about $350 a pop at this size and stuff. So and so they're very grippy. They probably don't have a lot of life either, as far as durability goes, but man, they have tons of grip and very impressive. Also, that 0.6-inch wider track helps this thing to feel so planted. It is just effortless. It is so effortless. Definitely the best four-door car I've ever taken down this back road. Probably the best handling four-door car I think I've experienced. I mean, even stuff like the Alfa Romeo Giulia and stuff, which I consider to be benchmarks as far as sedans go, this blows them out of the water and embarrasses most sports cars as well, just with how much grip and how flat. There's no body roll, there's no lean. A part of that is also because these are pretty light still. These weigh 3,485 pounds for a big four-door vehicle like this. That's pretty impressive numbers still. And so yeah, but this thing is just It is just so impressive. So, like how they went through everything with the engine, they went through basically everything in the suspension. You have specially tuned Bilstein dampers, you have reinforcements for sub bracings and cross members. They also have a rear sway bar that's thicker, I think it's 20 millimeters. You also have stiffer springs and all these types of enhancements to make this thing so planted and be really good on track too. You know, you also have Brembos that are beefed up to handle the better track, you know, performance that's expected out of this vehicle. So there are 6-piston Brembos up front, 2 in the rear. You know, there's drilled rotors as well, and so they look very nice in addition to performing great. And so yeah, it's definitely such a good handler, and it's a vehicle you really would have to track, I think, to fully appreciate. But even just going around, you know, your first couple of corners, the first time you hop in one of these things, you will notice it is so impressive and so special and different from everything else you've probably taken around a corner. I also do have to add, so I did a quick drive video on, I think, this identical vehicle just a couple of months ago, and back then the acceleration wasn't as impressive, but with that I kept starting from a higher speed. And I think, you know, the real magic of the STI is starting from 0 or at a very low RPM, because, you know, you do still have a little over 6,500 RPMs to play with here, but it still feels like a fairly narrow power band, since the first 3,000 RPMs or so don't give you much. And so it is pretty narrow, but you are shifting a lot and stuff, so it's a very active vehicle from a driver involvement standpoint, which I enjoy. But it's just, I think it's also a little bit cooler now than it was a couple months back, so I think that might have helped to perk this up a little bit as well. But yeah, it feels good, and I miss those whooshy Subaru sounds from these turbos. And the Boxer rumble, again, this might be you know, the last chance we get at this Boxer rumble, because there's rumors of the next gen ditching the EJ. But let's go for another acceleration here, shall we? Yeah, this thing. So other enhancements you have here, it's really surprising me. So you have a close ratio 6-speed manual, and the gears definitely seem closer together than even STIs, which traditionally have pretty short gearing to help them give it a little more of a dramatic acceleration experience. This seems even closer, and the shifter, by the way, feels fantastic. It is so precise, very quick shifts, even though it's a long throw here. It's very snappy, so you're not moving this long shifter very far. And so it's just, everything is so razor sharp and so dialed in. Everything, there's no play in anything. Like, driving this vehicle and driving, you know, with how sharp the throttle is and how sharp the shifter is and how sharp the braking and everything is, basically any other car is just going to feel sloppy after this. Like, it is just that sharp. It is, man, this thing would be a missile around a track. And even, yes, on a back road, it is thrilling and it feels special. I think they made some really big changes, again, to widen out the whole vehicle just for this special edition, and to give it such wide tires. All these things. It's also super easy to rev match your downshifts. You literally just stab the gas very briefly, and because of how sharp this throttle is, it immediately jumps up. So, I mean, you don't even have to think about rev matching. And if you're not perfect at rev matching, you know, just me getting in this vehicle for the first time, rev matching is a no-brainer. So easy to do here. But, oh man, the grip, and just, I'm really glad we also have, of course, the all-wheel drive system that Subaru is famous for here in the STI, and so that puts all the power down very, very well and gives you a very sure-footed feeling. Man, yeah, I can feel around 3,500 RPMs. It has a lot of punch, but yeah, these are tight corners, guys, too, and this thing, it just tackles them so easily. I am just blown away, and you know, I'm blown away now on this back road, but even the first time I went around a corner, once Subaru dropped this vehicle off, it was just like wow, like it blew me away. The first time I went around a tight corner, like, wow, this thing can handle, like, it is it is so flat and insane. I want to say it's the best handling vehicle I've driven all year. It is truly remarkable, and you know, again, it's been a little while since I've done an STI. They've always been, you know, pretty good handling vehicles, the STIs, but this just takes it up a whole other level, I think. And I really hope they incorporate some of these changes into the next gen standard STI, because having all this goodness reserved for only 209 lucky buyers seems like a shame, especially considering this is so expensive. You know, these are just under $65,000 for this very rare limited edition. It's just so mind-blowing that I really hope that other people get to enjoy this and try this out, you know, with these enhancements hopefully trickling down in the future. But man, oh man, this thing, it's addictive actually. And you know, I will say, you know, the past few years the STI has kind of been I guess dying on the vine a little bit. They've just had special editions that haven't really added a whole lot new to it, and this is really a massive change. I mean, to have the massive bump in power now, to have you know, the massive bump in handling, in every performance metric, this thing is way better. This is the enhancement I've been looking for from the STI its entire generation, and now we finally have it. But like I said, it's such a shame they're only doing 209 of these. It's so good. But hopefully, like I said, they work some of this stuff into the next gen. Other things to note here though, just cruising around, you have this very firm suspension, and so from a daily driving standpoint, especially here in Pittsburgh where we have plenty of potholes, it can be a little rough, and I don't know if I'd want to live with it every day, because it is a very bouncy ride as well. Not race car stiff, but again, not super far off. And so, you know, that is one thing that it's definitely a vehicle you have to be committed to. And just an off-the-cuff comparison very briefly. Again, been a couple of years since I've driven a Civic Type R, but I think Civic Type R is a little, you know, more street-friendly, a little softer. This really is going for the track. Like, that's this thing's mission. That or the autocross, of course. Autocrossing in this thing would be like amazingly good as well, I think. But yeah, so a little bit of a firm ride, and that's exaggerated by these firm seats still. So aside from those comfort things, you know, I'm enjoying the driving experience so much though that I don't think I'm going to mind. But thanks to Subaru, I am going to have this S209 here for an entire week. So I'm going to drive around all week, and then I'll come back and give you guys my final real-world fuel economy, as well as my impressions of what it's like to live with the S209 and anything else that I notice here during my week. Alright, so I've been driving the S209 here for a week now, and it's been a lot of fun. So because of the weather here, I was filming this here in December, and it's a little bit too cold to drive on these summer tires some of the days, so I didn't get to put as many miles on this as I would have liked to, but I still managed to put about 80 miles on it here in my time of driving it, and it's such a fun vehicle. I mean, there's definitely some drawbacks. You know, the stiff ride is certainly one of them. It is sporty. The seats are still pretty stiff. Now, they're not unbearably so, and as a short distance vehicle, you know, driving, commuting around, you know, running errands like I was doing, things like that, it's fantastic. It's fine. It's so much fun just to zip around and run your errands in it. It's really just so sharp. Everything is just so precise, but it's not a car I don't think I'd want to take this on a road trip, because not only is the ride kind of stiff, but you have pretty short gearing, which is fantastic whenever you're performance oriented, but sixth gear on the highway, you still are cruising about, I think, 70 miles per hour. I think it was around 2,700 RPMs or 2,750. So you're a little high up there, you know, on a vehicle that only has a red line of about 6,600 RPMs. And so just wouldn't be my pick for a road trip vehicle. That's really the only thing. But if you're not road tripping in this thing, I think it would be, you know, fantastic for a commuter vehicle, things like that. And of course, it's fantastic as a track car, which is what it was built for, obviously. So that's, you know, really the only other thing I noticed during the week. Now, as far as fuel economy goes, that is another potential drawback here, because this EJ motor, as cool as it sounds and as legendary as it is very outdated and very inefficient these days. So officially it's rated by Subaru at 15 in the city, 17 combined, and 21 on the highway. So best that Subaru claims you'll get is 21 mpg in a 4-cylinder turbo vehicle that only weighs 3,400 pounds or so, which is kind of crazy. Obviously, it's powerful, it's punchy, it's faster now than it ever was before from the factory. and it still is so much fun to just rip through these very short gears, and it really is dramatic and has that old school excitement that I've always loved about the WRXs and the STIs in particular. But that fuel economy, though, is basically, I mean, that's even worse than what I get in my Mustang Bullet, which is a 5-liter, so double the engine size as far as displacement goes. V8 engine, naturally aspirated, 480 horsepower in that, and that thing still, on a bad day, will be getting 17, 18 mpg. On the highway, I can still get almost 30. You know, modern gearing that's taller and just having modern technology in an engine really does work wonders, even just over the course of 10 or 15 years since the EJ has been in production here. And so obviously this one is, you know, designed for better performance and stuff. And I will say that my real world fuel economy here over my 80 miles of driving has been 17.7 mpg. So that's not bad considering combined rating is 17. And I basically did almost entirely city driving. I did do a little bit of highway, but it was brief. So basically, you know, I was supposed to be getting 15 in the city and I'm getting almost 18 instead. So those numbers might be a little more pessimistic than they should be as far as the official EPA numbers go, because, you know, all things considered, 18 mpg for a performance car like this in city driving isn't too bad. But again, it is still is on par with V8 muscle cars that weigh, you know, 400 or 500 pounds more. But that's just one of the prices you pay for the EJ. Obviously, if you want better fuel economy, the new FA20 motor and the new WRX is going to be a lot more fuel efficient and you know, be the way to go if that's what you're looking for. But the last thing to mention here is the price of the S209, which is arguably the hardest pill to swallow. So 65 grand basically. It's like 64,880 including destination for the S209. Obviously, they're only making 209 of these, and so very rare. It's going to probably be a collectible, so you know, as far as the value goes, it's kind of hard to judge, because if you're looking at it from a collector standpoint, it could be a great investment at 65 grand. Maybe it won't be, I don't know. But I will say that if you have the disposable income and you love the STI, this is still definitely the ultimate STI. And I haven't, you know, I don't daily drive an STI. I can't say that the improvements here are worth 25 grand. They probably aren't, especially considering how much you can get in the aftermarket for $25,000. But the wider track, the, you know, actual, you know, wide body kit here on this, you know, all those types of things aren't cheap things, and those are things that, you know, to have STI go through and properly engineer a wide body setup and not just slap one on and do the tuning yourself, you know, having that done well, you know, maybe that is worth it to someone. I think the extra engine performance is nice, but obviously you can get a whole lot more power in the aftermarket if you want to mess with one of these. But then you don't actually have any kind of warranty if you mess with these, you know, from the aftermarket. So having more power from the factory that's warranted and stuff is nice. Again, is it worth a 25 grand premium? Probably not. 25 grand, you could just, you know, spend 5 grand on mods, make way more power, and then, you know, have the other 20 grand put aside for a new engine if you need one. But all these things combined into this very special, very rare, very unique package. Again, if you have the money to spend, I think this is a fantastic vehicle. And compared with, even just saying, compared to other 65 grand sports cars, I think you'll find this is probably one of the sharpest, if not the sharpest, for the money, as far as just like pure steering feel and quickest turn in, and just the flattest feeling setup and the most taut suspension. Everything about this thing is just, you know, as far as autocross cars go, this is probably the best one you can buy for 65 grand off the shelf. You know, it's just, it's very, very sharp and very well set up. And it's just so much fun. It is really so much fun. Again, you can get a lot more power for 65 grand. That would arguably be just as much fun, if not more fun. But, you know, just worth mentioning here that this is a very special feeling car. This is almost certainly going to be collectible, and it's going to go down in history as, you know, being the first S-Series model we ever got here in the States. We'll have to see what they have in store, but could be the last as well. I mean, I hope not, but is probably going to be the last one as far as, you know, the EJ goes, of course. And this motor has been such a legendary motor in enthusiast history, and so this is kind of really the pinnacle and the swan song for this engine in its prime, in its peak, in the best setup it's ever been in as far as, you know, factory cars go. So I'm glad that Subaru made this, and just celebrates the history of STI. It's just a fantastic car, and yeah, I feel lucky to have gotten to spend a week with one of these, because it's a very, very special car. So anyway, huge thanks to Subaru for providing me with the S209 here to review for you guys today. Let me know your thoughts on the S209 in the comments below. Thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care.